When night fell in the village, the residents did not go down to the street. Dark creatures lurked in the darkness, bringing death and horror. Vampires, creatures from nightmares, haunted people, stealing children and cattle. They hid in dark corners, tracking down their victims. Even the bravest were scared, because vampires were strong and treacherous, leaving no chance of salvation. Every night, screams and moans pierced the night air when vampires came for their prey. People began to avoid going out, shut themselves in houses, and protected their children. But it didn't help. The creatures found a way to get into all corners of the village. But one day everything changed. A young hunter, desperate and brave, decided on a feat. He went on a vampire hunt to free the village from their curse. The hunter began to look for the vulnerable places of the creatures, built traps and tracked them down. One night, when the vampires gathered in large numbers to make a new attack, the hunter attacked them from behind. But when it seemed that he had won, the creatures stole the hunter into their caves, where they began planning revenge. The hunter was thrown back into the depths of the cave in the center of the dark lair of vampires. He was left alone among the enemies, a prisoner of the Vasiliv of darkness and evil. But courage and determination burned in his eyes, despite the hopeless situation. The hunter understood that he was facing a fierce struggle for survival. He carefully examined his surroundings and found a pair of old curved swords that had apparently been used a long time ago against other enemies. The hunter felt that at this moment he had to use all his skills and ingenuity to get out of this underground hell. He overcame fear and fatigue, found an optimal place where he could set up an ambush, and began to develop a plan that would help him in battle. He knew that he had to act quickly and skillfully, because time was not on his side, and the vampires had already begun to rise to the surface to carry off new victims. With every step he took, he was approaching a decisive battle. The tense sky hung over him. His vision was limited, but he felt that the moment was coming. His heart was beating loudly, and when the shadows of the enemies began to move in the dark, he prepared for an act of desperate struggle. And then the darkness suddenly parted, and he saw them vampires. They crawled over the ceiling of the cave, preparing to attack the village. The hunter got to his feet, preparing for a last desperate resistance. But suddenly, one of the vampires, the most powerful of all, stopped and looked at him curiously. There was something new in his gaze, something the hunter hadn't seen in those dead eyes before. Suddenly, he realized that this vampire was not as simple as everyone else, and that his real goal might not be exactly what he had dreamed of. The hunter's heart was beating faster when he realized that this vampire was not as simple as the others, and his goals could be much more complex than just attacking a village. He felt that there was something more that remained hidden to him. The atmosphere of tension became dense and unbearably urgent. The vampire stepped forward, radiating a pale light from his eyes that seemed to pierce to the very bones. The hunter felt fear, but the adrenaline associated with it filled his blood and forced him to gather his courage. In the darkness of the cave, his voice rang out, cold and ominous like ice. "You human, what brings you here to my residence? Have you decided to become visible to my troops? Bravery is blatant, but you're destined to fail. You are nothing before my might." The hunter felt his fingers grip the blade of the sword as he raised it defensively. "I know who you are, and what blooms through your veins, anger and thirst for power. You are a death-seeking, ruthless predator, and today you meet your own judge." The surrounding vampires were closing the distance, preparing for battle, but the hunter was ready. He stood firm, clad in his armor of courage and determination. At the same time, the vampires' expressions became uncertain, as if something was disrupting their plans. Their confidence was fading a little. At that moment, shadows filled the cave, and another figure appeared out of the darkness, a woman on vacation in a smart black dress. Her eyes shone from under her hood, and she looked at the hunter soulfully. "You are not the enemy you seem," she said. "You have been deceived. Let me help you find your roots again. They are simple, but the rays of light will bring you to the truth." The hunter was amazed and discouraged by the woman's words. He felt that her words were true, but she was still a mystery to him. He looked at her artfully hidden face and knew that the decisive moment was coming soon. "Who are you? Why are you here? What do you know about me?" The hunter asked with a note of suspicion in his voice. "My name doesn't matter at this moment. My calling is to save you," the woman replied with a mysterious smile. "All you need to know right now is that you are capable of more than you think. Your mission is not just to defeat vampires. And there is a secret hidden in your past that will be revealed to you when you are ready to find out the truth." The hunter felt that these words seemed to touch the depths of his soul. He felt that meeting this woman made him feel stronger than ever before. A mixture of emotions flooded his mind, and he realized that new horizons of power and possibilities were opening up before him. The vampires were advancing, their warriors ready to destroy their enemy. However, at this moment, the hunter felt that his decisions in this fight would be decisive. He turned his gaze to the woman, and she nodded back at him, as if supporting his inner struggle. And then the vampires attacked. The last fight began. Swords flashed in the darkness of the cave. Blood and howling deafened the ears. The warriors fell, but neither side wanted to give up. Time forever slowed down the flow when everything began to hang in the balance. And so, a mixture of metallic sounds from clashing swords, rising bloody screams and groans filled the cave. The vampires waged a fierce attack, but the hunter fought like an avalanche, confident in his purpose. The dark forces tried to devour him, but he remained steadfast, filled with the inner fire of struggle that flared up in his heart the moment he entered this fight. The woman was persistently watching the unfolding battle, as if waiting for the decisive moment. Her eyes radiated strength and wisdom, as if she knew what was coming next. At this time, the hunter felt his hands stained with warm blood, with a dark liquid slowly flowing over his skin. He felt very tired, excluded from him in body and soul, wrapping him as if in a heavy veil. Suddenly, he quite accidentally saw some kind of reflection flash in front of him in the portal of time, which opened between lightning striking the shackles with even more terrifying vampires standing. Behind the portal, something in this reflection touched his soul, awakening unknown forces, directing him to understand the dark secret that lies in his past. Spinning and parrying, the hunter felt that he was getting answers, providence and inspiration from this intricate vision. But there were still so many questions that needed to be answered. And so, the forces began to weaken, as if something was pulling them inside the portal. The woman looked at the hunter with remorse and said, "Fate tells you to follow this path and solve the mystery that will help save this world. But it's already impossible for you to go there alone. Only by teaming up with someone who was called to the vampires will you be able to gain true strength to survive the ordeal that fate is preparing for you." And then the vampires retreated into the mysterious portal, but their leader remained standing, looking at the hunter with disbelief, as if feeling that the world had not yet seen the last fight. And here, at this tense moment, we say goodbye to all of you. Bring out the exciting epic events of this story are just beginning, and the main characters are still waiting for the most important challenges. Through the stormy waters of mixed sensuality and danger, they move forward, fighting for their destinies. And here lies the moment of the true barrier between light and darkness. The hunter stood alone in the cave, as if accepting the challenge of the darkness and evil that were falling upon him. His eyes sparkled with danger, and his heart was beating in a hurricane of passions and secrets. He saw no hope in the woman. Vampires were a threat and a mystery of the past, and the portal peered into his own soul and future. And suddenly the cave was enveloped in a gloomy flame. Revived energy filled the hidden caves of the dungeon, as if evil itself had awakened. An indescribable vision flashed through the hunter's mind, like a prediction of the apocalypse and horror that had fallen into the hellish abyss of his soul. And when the fierce flames struck the earth, the hunter disappeared, and the cave swallowed up his body and soul, as if he had become a part of this element, devoting himself to the dark mystery and horror of his destiny. According to other versions, the ashes swirled in there, like an explosion consuming a hearth. The vampires disappeared into the portal, and only the echo of their screams echoed through the caves as evidence of the last storm. And the woman stood in silence, shrouded in mystical mystery and mystery, like a remnant of an ancient prophecy, looking at the place where the hunter stood a moment ago. Thus ended this clash of light and darkness, promising further mysteries and horrors that were awakened in this battle. Time will tell what awaits the world, immersed in the struggle for its future and its destiny. And as always, the answers to the questions waiting to be solved in this endless struggle between light and darkness will remain a secret.